That day, the sun was blazing straight overhead, beating down hard on the dirt road beside my family's old cattle barn. The air was dead still, broken only by the creak of the windmill and the occasional bleating of the goats, like they were waiting for a show to start. And then she appeared. HOA Karen. Blonde curls bouncing, decked out head to toe in khaki. Walking like this was her personal territory. In her left hand, she clutched a stack of neon pink papers. In her right, she waved around a shiny pearl-handled pistol. She stopped right at the ranch gate, lifted her chin, and shouted loud enough for all of Pine Ridge Estates to hear. "You've got 24 hours to tear down this ugly cow barn off HOA land, or I'll do it myself." Neighbors gathered to watch. A couple of kids giggled like it was some kind of street play. Me? I didn't bother to move. Karen thought she'd just delivered the knockout blow. But slowly, I slid my hand into my pocket and pulled out a tightly rolled document. When I unfurled it, the bright red government seal glimmered in the sunlight. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice calm, like the wind drifting through the fields. "Dorothy, you just pointed a gun at federal property." For a split second, the whole world went silent. That pearl-handled pistol sagged in her hand. Her mouth dropped open, as if she'd just seen the ghost of Abraham Lincoln standing inside the cattle barn. And right then, I knew. The game had flipped. To understand why a woman would march up with a pistol in one hand and neon pink paperwork in the other to threaten an old cattle barn, you need to know a little about the place I live. Henderson Ranch. 22 acres, a barn built back in 1872, a rickety old windmill that still spins just fine, and a noisy herd of goats I practically consider family. Every morning I feed them. Every evening I sit on the porch and watch the sun go down. Simple, peaceful, nobody complaining. But then Pine Ridge Estates arrived. A shiny new eco-paradise where every house looks exactly the same. Beige walls, cookie-cutter tile roofs, white fences lined up like they'd been drawn with a ruler. They call it an exclusive community. I call it copy-paste suburbia. From the moment they showed up, my barn suddenly became a so-called visual threat. They didn't want history outside their windows. They only wanted glossy beige houses that matched their khaki pants. And leading the crusade against me was Dorothy Fitzgerald, better known, at least in everyone's heads, as HOA Karen. In her eyes, I wasn't a rancher protecting my family's heritage. I was just a non-compliant resident who refused to conform to modern aesthetic standards. And from the day Pine Ridge sprouted up next to my ranch, I knew one thing for sure. The storm had begun. Now, let's talk about Dorothy Fitzgerald, the star of my HOA nightmare. But honestly, calling her Dorothy sounds way too gentle, so everyone in the neighborhood secretly just calls her Karen. And if you've ever heard the Karen meme, trust me, she's a whole new level above it. Karen's got blonde curls like a pack of instant ramen noodles, forever dressed head to toe in beige khakis, and a shrill voice sharp enough to pierce through 3 layers of car windows. She struts around the neighborhood like some kind of crownless queen, always waving around a stack of papers printed on her home inkjet, as if they were the constitution of an entire nation. Her specialty? Official violation notices typed out in Comic Sans. One day it's wood stain not within the earth tone spectrum. The next it's windmill spinning too many rotations, causing noise pollution. I even got a notice once claiming my goats were bleeding outside of approved hours. Yep, you heard that right. According to Karen, livestock schedules require HOA authorization. The funniest part, if you can call it that, is how she truly believes the HOA outranks the police, the courts, even the federal government. In Karen's eyes, the HOA is Congress, the Constitution, and the Supreme Court, all rolled into one beige khaki outfit and a head of curly blonde hair. Back then, I just thought, well, she's annoying, that's all. But I had no idea. Karen wasn't just annoying. She was a storm waiting to wipe out my family's heritage, just because it didn't match the sacred shade of beige she worshipped. And from that moment, I knew this wasn't going to end simply. If you think Karen stopped at silly violation notices, you're underestimating the sheer madness of her creativity. Ever since Pine Ridge popped up, Karen has treated my old cattle barn like her #1 enemy, and every week she comes up with a new stunt to turn my life into an episode of HOA versus the farmer. One morning, I woke up to find a bright red spray-painted message across the barn's weathered wooden wall. Pending demolition by HOA. The sloppy letters dripped like something out of a B-grade horror flick. Before I even had a chance to wipe it off, there she was, Karen, standing outside the fence, snapping pictures with her phone, mumbling, "Perfect, this one's going in the slideshow." But that wasn't enough. She put up a neon plastic fence right at the ranch gate, complete with a sign that read, "Danger Zone, no entry." Neighbors passing by glanced at each other, whispering, some even asking, "Wait, is there radiation over there?" In reality, the only hazard was Karen herself and her brand new bullhorn. The breaking point came the day she decided to handle my goats. Karen barged in, shouting, "These livestock haven't been HOA approved. They must be impounded." Then she chased the herd into chaos. One little goat slipped and slammed against the fence, bleeding in pain. My blood boiled, fists clenched. I was ready to charge out. But reason held me back. The security cameras were recording everything. And still, she wasn't done. One evening, Karen rallied the entire HOA board outside my ranch gate, complete with a portable projector and microphone. She kicked off what she called an emergency HOA meeting, projecting a slideshow of my barn, except she'd photoshopped it to look like collapsing haunted shack. Then she screamed into the loudspeaker, "If the authorities won't act, we will. This is our community's aesthetic duty." I stood inside the fence, arms crossed, caught between fury and laughter. My goats huddled behind me, wide-eyed, probably thinking, "This lady's completely lost it." But I knew one thing for certain. Every stunt, every trespass, every ridiculous act was turning Karen into her own Exhibit A. And when the day came that she went too far, everything would explode. And then the fateful day arrived. The sky was crystal clear, the sun blazing down on the fields, the windmill creaking in the breeze like it was warning of something big about to happen. I was fixing a section of the fence when I heard a loud thud at the gate. I looked up, and there she was, Karen. But not the usual Karen with her bullhorn and Comic Sans flyers. No. This time, Dorothy Fitzgerald, HOA Karen, was climbing over my fence like an intruder, clutching a blindingly pink sheet of paper in her left hand and a pearl-handled revolver in her right, gleaming like a prop straight out of an old cowboy movie. She landed on the ground, high heels stabbing into the grass, and shouted, "You've ignored every warning. This is a special permit authorizing me to take any necessary measures to protect community aesthetics. This barn will be demolished today." I glanced at the paper in her hand and nearly laughed. Comic Sans font, a fake red stamp drawn in marker, the title plastered across the top, "Special Enforcement Order, HOA Authority." Honestly, it was barely good enough to wrap a sandwich. But Karen clutched it like it was a decree from the Supreme Court. One hand waved the paper, the other pointed her pearl-handled pistol at my family's 150-year-old barn. Behind me, the goats clustered together, wide-eyed, probably thinking, "Yep, she's finally gone too far." And me? I didn't panic. I didn't argue. I just stepped calmly onto the porch, reached into my pocket, and pulled out the document I'd been keeping ready for 2 years. Slowly, I unrolled it, letting the sunlight glint off the bold red seal. A certificate of National Historic Landmark designation. I locked eyes with Karen, my voice steady, each word landing heavy as stone. "Dorothy, you just aimed a gun at federal property." The air froze solid. Her pistol sagged in her hand, eyes wide, mouth hanging open. Neighbors rushed over, silent, watching. And in that moment, I knew the game had flipped. Karen thought that waving her pearl-handled pistol and flashing that ridiculous pink permit would end with me panicking and running. But no, in truth, that was only the beginning. Because that very night, I gathered every piece of evidence, security camera footage, drone clips, even the fake Comic Sans violation notices, and sent the whole fat file to the feds, thicker than a high school history textbook. Just 48 hours later, Pine Ridge Estates witnessed a sight no one had ever seen before. 2 gleaming black SUVs, windows tinted, rolling slowly through the subdivision. Federal agents stepped out, suits crisp, mirrored sunglasses catching the sun, faces carved in stone. They didn't ask for directions. They walked straight to house number 14. Yes, the home of HOA Karen. Neighbors poured out like it was a county fair. One woman whispered, "Oh my God, it's really the FBI." A man chuckled, "Told ya, she was bound to get hauled off one day." The air was tense, but sweet with satisfaction. Karen stumbled onto her porch, clutching her stack of pink papers like a holy relic. Her voice shook as she screamed, "This is a misunderstanding. I acted for the community. The HOA has jurisdiction over visual footprints. You can't arrest me." The agents exchanged glances. One of them tapped a thick folder against the porch steps and said, "Cool as ice." "Mrs. Fitzgerald, we've got video, witnesses, documents, and yes, your slideshow too." Karen froze. Inside the file were high-definition clips of her climbing fences, waving a gun, chasing goats, spray painting pending demolition. And worse, they'd uncovered her using HOA funds to hire a private lawyer to find a way to kick me off my land. Within a week, the entire HOA board evaporated like foam in the sun. Other members rushed to disown her. One claimed, "We didn't know anything." Another resigned, citing emotional exhaustion. They scattered faster than cockroaches when the kitchen light flips on. And Karen? She was led away by federal agents. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, sobbing and shrieking. "You don't understand. Historic barns are unconstitutional. I'll be back." The residents of Pine Ridge watched her go. Exhaling like a curse had finally been lifted. As for me, I sat back on my porch, sipped my coffee, and thought, Karen might know how to play HOA rules, but she never stood a chance against federal law. Karen's trial quickly became the hottest ticket in town. Pine Ridge estates showed up in bigger numbers than a Friday night high school football game. Some folks wore beige outfits to match the HOA vibe, while others smuggled in popcorn like it was movie night. Everyone wanted to witness the final downfall of the woman who once thought she held the law itself in her hands. Karen entered the courtroom, no longer swaggering, but still trying to perform. Her blonde curls were a tangled mess. Mascara streaked down her face in twin tracks like railroad lines. Clutching an oversized stack of pink papers, she wailed, "Your Honor, I only acted for the community. I am the victim of aggressive rural living." The room went dead silent until the prosecutor pressed play on the projector. On the screen, Karen climbing a fence, waving her pearl-handled pistol, screaming, "This barn will be demolished immediately." Then came the bleating of goats echoing through the speakers. A heartbeat of silence, followed by an eruption of laughter that rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor barely had to make a case. They had it all. Videos, fake Comic Sans violation slips, receipts proving Karen spent HOA funds on her personal lawyer, even a Facebook post where she proudly bragged about her plan to wipe out that disgusting barn. The judge struck the gavel, eyes fixed on Karen, his voice low and cold. "Mrs. Fitzgerald, no one, not even an HOA, stands above federal law." The sentence came down. 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, a $150,000 fine with restitution, and a permanent ban from ever serving on any HOA board again. Karen's face drained of color. Then she spun toward me, finger shaking, tears streaming, and screamed, "You ruined my life. Historic barns are unconstitutional. I'll be back." Court officers stepped in, gently taking her by the arms. She slumped into a chair, sobbing and muttering like a failed actress in her last miserable role. The rest of the courtroom, some chuckled, some clapped softly. And me? I just folded my arms and smiled, because I knew this time Karen had lost for good. After the trial, Pine Ridge Estates fell into an uncanny silence. No more bullhorn lectures about community aesthetics. No more Comic Sans violations slip-stuffed in my mailbox. Only the wind whistling through the old windmill, the goats bleating lazily across the pasture, and my 150-year-old barn standing tall, untouched, unbroken. The neighbors' attitudes began to shift. A few even wandered up to the fence, forced a smile, and muttered, "You know, the barn actually looks kind of vintage." I just nodded, sipped my coffee, and said nothing. Because the part I enjoyed most wasn't their late compliments. It was picturing HOA Karen, the woman who once thought she outranked the government itself, now folding laundry in a federal prison. The lesson I took? When a Karen believes she is the law, the way to beat her isn't yelling back or stooping to her level. It's patience. Gather the evidence. Let the feds do the rest. The government may move slow, but when it finally acts, even the fiercest Karen falls silent. That evening, I sat on the porch watching the sun paint the fields red. The goats grazed peacefully, blissfully unaware they had narrowly escaped a community aesthetic purge. I chuckled to myself and thought, sure, you can Karen your neighbors, but you can't Karen the federal government. And that, folks, was the end.